Weeks are on,
Deadly.
Camera's on, so we're good to go. Everyone, thank you very much for coming back once again. This is the James Hempton Show. I don't know why I feel like I need to do an introduction, but I think at the moment I am. I'll probably wear off
You're
after
a baby
a while.
man, you do what you want.
Exactly. It is what it is at the moment, but I'm joined this evening by Mr. Dan Campion. Is that how you say it?
Campion.
Campion.
But I've been called champion four times this week. I'll take it.
Take Champion. I mean,
Take
Champion, it could turn into a nickname. But anyway, Mr. Prymal Podcast.
Prymal, yeah.
Are you known for that as well?
Not really, no.
No, not really.
People just call me Dan.
Yeah, Dan the man. Anyway, I'm joined by Dan. Cross paths quite a while ago when I came into the whole podcasting world, and it's been a hell of an experience up to now, Dan. And it's the podcasting world is like something I never knew about, because I think in life we can be blind to so many things, and then you're introduced to something, you're like, I never knew this world existed.
Yeah.
And that's what happened when I walked into the Prymal Studios. And one thing that's always stuck with me, Dan, because first impressions are everything in life, I believe, is how impressed I was with the setup that you have. I'm wondering, were you inspired, because what you have done with your studio has inspired me somewhat so to create this space that I have here now. And I'm like, did you see someone else do it for you to have some sort of an insight into how to put your own spin and personality on the space that you have?
Are you talking about the
actual studio,
the visual and the kind of feeling that you get?
I remember going in there being so relaxed. It was like lovely kind of dark lights or dim lights. You had the plants, you had the scent coming up,
Yeah.
you had the lovely lofty beats on the wall. I was like, I feel like I'm in heaven here. And the first thing I said was, this room is set up for great conversation, because you just had it set up so well that people come in, they feel relaxed, everything's in place. It's just all the books. I just loved the setup of it.
Yeah.
But were you inspired by someone else to set up your own place?
No. Yes and no. I was inspired to start podcasting, obviously, by other podcasters, but I have a massive appreciation for the power of environment.
Yeah.
And I spent 12 years in the medical world. We worked in a small clinic, and I used to have one-on-one conversations a lot with people who came into the clinic. Yeah. Because I'd meet them first and talk to them about how we could help them and stuff like that. And they were intimate, personal conversations about people's medical history and how their heads were and all this kind of stuff. So for me, I became very aware of how comfortable those people were with me, number one. So I'm part of the environment they're in. Yeah. But also the room they're in, how this kind of sights, the sounds, the smells, and manipulating that could make a person much more comfortable. And when they're more comfortable, we had a better conversation, better connection, and I got more information, and I was able to help them better. So that's where it started to click for me. So I didn't have a natural kind of feel for this or anything like that, but it started to click after doing the reps and meeting loads and loads of people. And the second thing where environment became important for me was this whole idea of set and setting with the psychedelic world.
I love that phrase, set and setting. Yeah.
Set and setting.
Actually, you were the man that introduced me, or that's where I heard it first.
I was like, well, I can't take credit for that at all. Yeah. And I'm not that I'm well versed in the world of psychedelics, but this idea of set and setting, which will, in the world of psychedelics, completely affect the way the experience goes. But for me, that applies to everything.
Oh, I was literally
everything.
You took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, how doesn't it apply to everything in life?
Think about
it does.
Yeah, like if you have your dinner, people can imagine the nicest place that maybe it's curled up on the couch watching a bit of TV, and it's like, I enjoy my dinner so much more. If you're having your dinner at a bus station on the side of a busy street, it's going to affect how you enjoy the food.
Of course.
So that's a really extreme example. But for something like podcasting or the studio, to answer your question, all I knew was I had to create an environment for people where they were comfortable and it was easy to connect, because I had a decade of experience of having a deep connection with people that was heavily influenced by the environment. Yeah. So when I went into the room, it was a white office, like most of the offices in that building are white offices. The first one you went in, the first studio I built, was kind of similar. The second one's a massive upgrade. But I knew I wanted somewhere that the light was low, there's a bit of LED going on, it was wood, it was natural, there was trees, had to smell nice, because a massively powerful connection with smell and memory in the brain. So you can trigger good or bad memories in people with how a place smells.
Connect with all the senses, yeah.
Everything was really, really important. The table was, I had it custom made. That was, for me, it was a big outlay at the time, but I was like, I wanted raw, live edge. The company was Prymal. It was all about connecting with your roots. So I thought about everything in isolation. I'm no Dermot Bannon now. I didn't see it all in one big picture coming together. I was like, I fucking hope this works.
I love
this
Dermot
Bannon.
I love, that's well said.
The colours for me, I knew I was going to be doing video. There's a kind of an orange and teal in video. They're complementary colours. You see a lot of big Hollywood movies use that. So I was like, orange and teal go quite well. The colour of wood and the colour of trees go quite well. So that's where the colour kind of came from. And then I built everything around that.
What do you think that is? Is that a natural kind of primitive aspect that we have that we like associating with, like, this is wood, this is a plant, or whatever it is?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Like everyone comes into my studio and they spend, like everybody rubs the table.
Yeah.
So there's a grounding element.
And they give it a good smell as well.
They smell the room, I suppose. Yeah. Maybe some people smell the table when I'm not there or we're not looking, but they all rub it.
Yeah.
They rub the natural live edge of the table, and I do it as well. I'm sitting at it, so there's a definite connection with.
There's energy
nature
thing as well, like trees and everything else, and plants and whatever it may be. There's all energy there, so that's what you're feeling when you're in that room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think we pick up on it, definitely so.
Yeah.
And you said it well there as well. To create great conversation, Dan, people need to be comfortable. They need to be comfortable in your presence. They need to be comfortable in the environment, and that's how just great things flourish. Is when there's a sense of ease attached, and then it can just grow into whatever it grows into. It just kind of compounds and keeps on moving. But that's absolutely beautiful. And I remember I was so taken back, and still am today, and hopefully I'll be back at some stage. Is that it's such a great place to have great conversations, and that's why you're obviously thriving now with the business and everything that you have. Tell me, how did the actual term Prymal come about? How did the Prymal Podcast, or do you call the studios Prymal Studios?
Yeah, the company's called Prymal Productions Limited, so I had to call the company something.
Yeah.
So it's a funny thing about, like, I've started a few businesses in my time. I'm sounding like a serial business owner there. I'm not, but I've started several projects, been involved in several projects. And the part that everyone thinks is really important is the name. We're going to spend loads of time on the name. So many people get caught up on the name. What's the name going to be? And I was no different. I got caught up on the name. All I knew was I wanted something that represented what I was trying to achieve, which was a reconnection to the things that are really important to us. Because as I said, the kind of medicine that I worked with, the people that I worked with, it was all about lifestyle medicine. It was all about metabolic health and eating well, moving well, feeling good, having good relationships, primal stuff.
Yeah.
So the first thing I wrote down, I have the page somewhere. I'll find the page. I'll send you a picture. Yeah. The first thing I wrote down was Prymal. And about 3 weeks later, and about 800 names later, I kept coming back to Prymal with an I, the word Prymal. I was like, it's something to do with Prymal. It can't just be Prymal, it's something to do with Prymal. And I was like, I'll go on to CRO to register the company and see if the name Prymal is available. And I went on, and apparently there's like 50 companies in Ireland called Prymal Engineering, Prymal Electricians, Prymal fucking Fix Your Taps, whatever. Yeah. So I was like, so I can't name a Prymal now. I was like, what if I put a Y in there? And I thought it kind of looked like an arrowhead or a spear or something. I was like, that's really Prymal. Yeah. So I just put a Y in. And I remember Jill was there. I was like, it's Prymal with a Y. And she's like, you're not still on Prymal, are you? This was like 3 weeks of trying to come up with names. Yeah. The most inefficient business process ever. And it was just basically it. But the connection, similar to having the wood and the trees and the raw and all that, was a connection to the deeper things.
It's so interconnected.
For me,
it's all connection.
It's all connection. The podcasting is just a tool for me. Yeah. It was about creating a space where you could connect with other people. So
I was just going to say how important.
Everything linked.
I think that's a big part of life nowadays, is that what we're missing is that connection with one another. And I think that's a great thing with podcasts as well, is that people actually sit down and have a conversation where there's nothing else going on but right here. Yeah. It's our minds become almost in sync with it as well. And I think there's I think there's like a therapeutic factor to it as well, where you can just really connect with someone and it's just like, you're here. You're nowhere else. You know what I mean? Because we're so distracted with the life that we live now. It's just like, podcasts have finally given us a space to sit down and actually talk, where that may have never ever been there before. Like, when have you ever like you wouldn't, unless this was recorded right now, and maybe we would sit here talking face to face, Dan, who knows?
We probably wouldn't.
It's another, I don't think we would, but it's another reason just to be with someone else, you know what I mean? And be with them in a much deeper sense. And that's why I like the whole Prymal aspect, because it's like you said, deeper connection. You have everything in that room. So people sit down, connection. Yeah. How much more connected are they going to get?
It's funny. I ask everybody. I asked you guys, I think, when you came in as well. Yeah. When was the last time you sat down to have a conversation that was really deep and connected? That wasn't kind of, how was your day? And all that kind of, because people have good relationships with each other. I'm not saying they don't, but the last time you had a really deep, meaningful conversation, most people can't give me the answer to the question, because they go, sure, it was only, and they're like, Jesus, when was it?
And now that you say that now, I'm thinking, if it wasn't for a podcast, I can't tell you the last time I had a really
and like
deep.
I'll ask anybody who's listening here now, like, have an actual think about it. And for some people, they say, I was yesterday with my friend, but there was a situation created where maybe you and your friend were walking through the woods, and there was a space created where you had an opportunity to be deeply connected, or your phone wasn't there or something like that.
I was just going to mention, if the phone's around, there's no
the phone's around is a disaster.
No, it's not happening. You talked about focus recently as well, and one of the key elements of focus, I believe, is just not being distracted.
Oh yeah.
Just take away the element of not being distracted, but because where attention goes, energy flows. It's so true. Attention is everything in this life. Like the whole social media scene, people want eyes on screens looking at what you're doing. That's the game is all about attention, but the great thing here right now is that the attention and focus is solely here and nothing else.
Yeah.
And it's like you just go down rabbit holes. You know, you go down maybe a rabbit hole on YouTube, but with a conversation, it's just like you're just finding these different routes. Like even this conversation now is not planning on how it was gonna go. Not that I had a set plan, but we're talking about something that I never thought we'd talk about. And the reason why is because we're facilitating that conversation to happen. Yeah, I believe so. Anyway,
no, you're dead right. You're dead right. And it is. You said therapeutic there. It is a form of therapy for us.
Yeah.
How do you feel after a podcast?
Very good.
After having done one, you feel good?
I have the majority of them. The few I've done, the few I've done so far. Yeah, I felt good.
You feel energized.
Energized. Now some of them can be quite mentally
you're tired.
Tired, yeah.
But when
in a great sense.
In a great sense, yeah. Like you've done a good workout.
Exactly.
You know you've gotten something from it.
Yeah.
I always say my brain feels nourished. The amount of people who say when they leave the studio it was like therapy. I laugh because it technically is therapy, because all a therapist does is sits and allows you to express yourself.
That's what it is.
And if you can't express yourself, you internalize a lot of stuff or you don't process a lot of stuff. So think about going through our and some of the stuff I would have studied through the work I did or through the kind of the medical work we did. I'm not a psychologist or anything like that, but think about all of the inputs you have in a day. And you don't process the vast majority of those. You don't give yourself time to actually, okay, something has happened. What do I think about that? How do I feel?
That's so true.
Someone cuts you off in traffic. You just get pissed off and you shout at them. And then you go on to the next thing. The phone rings and it's just constant input. You never give your brain a chance to actually process. Someone cut me off there. Why did I get so angry? What was going on? Maybe there's something going on in his day. Yeah. You don't work through those thought patterns. So you leave all these open loops in your head and the brain doesn't like that. So when you give yourself, like we didn't plan this at all, talk about this stuff.
No. This is brilliant.
When you give yourself space, this is why meditation works.
You literally were leading up to it, Dan.
But this is why it works.
Yeah.
And for me, just because I'm not great at practicing meditation, but for me, this is a form of meditation. Because I'm saying things now that are in my head and I think about, but sometimes I'm actually forming thoughts and words as I'm saying them. And my brain is like, this is unbelievable.
Your brain doesn't even know it's there. It's like it's just coming out. Well, maybe it knows somewhat.
Your body knows it's there because it manifests as stress or anxiety or illness.
Yeah.
But if you can give your brain a way to process those thoughts, Naval talks about this. If you listen to Naval talk about meditation, and Rogan asked him, and he said, like, what?
Dan has only listened to this podcast.
I listened to it last week. I listened to it regularly. But Naval's idea on this is, meditation is about allowing the brain to work through all this stuff, and eventually you get to a point where there is nothing, the inbox is empty, and that's kind of this inner peace.
Yeah.
Now maybe there'll never be inner peace because we're always putting more inputs in.
That's the enlightenment moment.
Yeah, but imagine getting your inbox down to 5 emails a day as opposed to 5 million emails a day. How much lower your stress levels would be. So conversation for me, that's why I got into this industry. Conversation for me is that form of therapy for most people who can't practice meditation or journaling, or it doesn't work for them. Conversation works for everybody, in my opinion.
It does.
Because all you're doing here is allowing me to get this out of me, and I'm allowing you to get it, and we're doing a dance with each other. It's a lovely
dynamic,
And for some people, they just need to talk. Like I had a woman in last week. Everybody says it to me. I'm like, why would you like to start a podcast? And they kind of give me the generic answers. Oh, it'd be good for business. Good for business. I was like, no. Like, why? Really, why? They're like, they start doing this stuff. Like, it's in me. I have to get some stuff out. I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. And I know that's in almost everybody. So why I love what I do is I get to facilitate that. Why I built the room the way it is because the room facilitates that. So, but it is a form of therapy, and it's about helping the brain close those loops and kind of process all the inputs.
Open loops, the brain hates
open loops.
I heard this recently, actually. I started reading James Smith's new book. I think it's called How to Be More Confident. How to Be Confident, and he picked up something from when he was on Modern Wisdom with Chris Williamson, and they talked about
hero.
Yeah, great guy. They talk about the Zeigarnik effect, I think it is. And it's this open loop system, and I think I don't know what he was exactly, the guy that picked it up, but he was relating it to waiters working in a restaurant, that they could recite the bill, but once the bill was closed, it was gone.
Yes. And
how it relates to our own lives is if you have all these, and I have them in my own life as well, as like mental open loops. So you have these loops that are open, that say you have to do a certain thing and you're not doing it, you keep putting it off. This loop keeps playing in your head until you close it off, and then it's gone. It's like you can just send that email away. It's no longer a draft. It's just gone. But if you don't close them, what happens is then loops just keep on going. And the same thing, if you haven't processed anything, what happens? And then it's like your computer. It just keeps on building up till it crashes. It's like, fuck this, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I need some mental space. And you said it very well, Dan. You're now a facilitator, which is a beautiful job to have. It really is an amazing job.
I love it.
Yeah. And it's so crazy how it came about as well. I love the whole story, the process to it, and even the name and what it's came to be. It's like, credit to you. It's incredible, because what's quite interesting as well in this area where we live, like County Dublin stores, I suppose, is coming out.
Up the dubs.
We're
coming back.
It's like I don't know anyone else that's doing it, so it's great also seeing someone that's so passionate about what they do.
Yeah.
I also find in life it's kind of hard. Well, look, more people slowly come across, they see they're quite enthusiastic about what they do, but it's very refreshing when you meet someone that's just so invested in what they do. And even when we were playing around here at the beginning, you were like, had all this set
I
up.
feel bad because we spent the first hour here. I got invited to a podcast. I bought a big bag of toys. I was like, plug this mic in and plug it in here.
You brought everything. You brought yourself, which is the main thing as well. Tell me, Dan, when you were setting up a business, how was that for you? How was the whole process? Was it an individual process? Were you with anyone when you done it originally, or how did that go?
So with Prymal, I did start it with a guy, lovely guy, friend of mine, Jess. We're still good friends today. It didn't end in tears, don't worry.
How was that process of setting it up? Was it stressful, or was it kind of an easy process, or how did it go?
Starting businesses is easy.
Is it?
Maintaining businesses is hard.
It's a hard bit.
Business is hard. Yeah, I don't like. Let me just clarify this now. I'm not a business expert. I'm only a few years in business myself.
How long is Prymal business?
Nearly 4 years.
4 years.
3.5 to 4 years. Now, I worked in a business before this. I was part of a small business. The clinic we ran was a small business. I was part of the business development team, so I understood about business, but now I know how little I actually knew about what business was. Yeah. It's easy to start businesses. So like in Ireland, you can start a business tomorrow for 70 quid.
Yeah.
You register the name of the CRO. You can be a sole trader, limited company, whatever. It's not hard to set up a business, a company structure.
Yeah.
You can pick a name, do all the fun things, get a logo, pick your brands. That's all a bit of crack. That's all fun. Especially if you're creative, like myself and yourself are. Like we're like, I'm gonna start a business and podcasting, and it's just going to be amazing, and everybody will come. That's like 5% of it. So you do need the passion. You do need to love what you do and all that kind of crack. But there's a lot of practical skills in business that I'm now learning. Yeah. That are really, really important. And like there's stats on this. 90% of startup businesses fail within 2 years.
2 years,
90% of the 10% that are left are failed after 5 years. So like we're talking low numbers of people who actually managed to make this work. I'm not saying I've done it yet. I love what I do. It's working at the moment, so I'm very grateful. But it's difficult to maintain it. So I started with Jess. I had an idea. It had to come out of me, man. There was something in me had to come out of me.
You were doing all the gesticulation as well.
I was doing all the gesticulation. It had to come out. I knew I had a creative side of me that wasn't being satisfied. I loved the work that I did. I was working in the medical industry, helping people. It was amazing. But there was a part that had to come out. And then I started getting all this about the conversation and connection, and I could be a facilitator here. And an interesting thing happened when I was working in the medical industry. I'm a physio by trade. That's what I studied. I'm a physio. Yeah. And I learned a lot of skills through working with the job. But I'm not the expert in anything. But I got a great amount of joy. People would call me from everywhere. My football team, my friends, my family, people I knew would all call me and say, look, Dan, I've got this problem or this problem. I'm struggling with this or dealing with this. And I'd always have someone to connect them with. Yeah. I'd always have someone to send them to that could help. So because
they knew you were in that field.
Because they knew I was in the field of helping people. So I always knew someone who could help with something. Yeah. And that felt really good to me if I was able to refer to somebody and they had a great experience. I was like, that's amazing for me. People would thank me and be like, I didn't do anything here. I just made the connection. So another thing about Prymal was I was like, I could be this connector of people. And while I was working in the industry, I met so many amazing practitioners. Yeah. Gym people, fitness people, wellness people, medical people, surgical people, holistic people who were changing people's lives, but nobody knew about them. So I would connect them with other people, and like I had a little network kind of going there.
It's almost like it was meant to happen, Dan. No, it definitely does. The way you're talking about it, it's almost like this. You were meant to be the person that just opened up all these doors to so many other people, and they all can be connected now. Yeah. It's amazing.
Other people are doing this. Other people do podcasts and have studios and stuff like that. But what I do is different, I feel. And so to kind of answer the question properly without going off on a million different tangents here, I started the business with Jesse. I approached Jesse, said, look, I want to do this. He was very interested in the personal development sphere as well. We were both listening to the same kind of stuff on podcasts. I was actually doing a lot of my research for treatments we would bring into the clinic through podcasts. So I'd find different experts in different fields, medical fields, listen to their stuff, and go to the doc I work with and say, can we try this? Can we bring this over here? And he'd kind of tell me legally, yeah, legally no, medically, yeah, medically no. Yeah. So I was very interested in the podcast space. Yeah. Loved all the gear. I'm a gear I love the gear. I'm addicted to the gear, like the cameras and lenses and mics and all that kind of crack. So I went to Jess. I was like, do you want to do something here? Something has to come out. I had a little bit of money saved there. I was like, we'll start up a little side project. And that was all it was at the start. I didn't know what it was going to be.
Passion project.
I was like, and he was like, what will we do? And I was like, all I know is I'm going to create a space where people can come and connect and communicate. I was like, I don't know what that looks like yet, but I was already running a podcast for the clinic as an advertising tool, which was going great. And I was meeting loads of people. I was like, it can be a podcast studio. It's a great place to start. People will find it weird if I say, do you want to come and just talk to me in this room? But if I say, do you want to come on my podcast? I'll get a lot more people through the room. And the other thing I had in the back of my head was a lot of people I would have known, my peers, maybe some of my friends, wouldn't really be into the whole world of health, fitness, personal development, or anything like that. And do you know the way that a lot of people that we would know would turn off a lot of our friends because they're very out there?
Yeah.
Like maybe they wear the leopard skin pants, or maybe like you, they're on the rings in the middle of Phoenix Park or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And most of my mates would be like, they're fucking weirdos, who's this? But they could really do with trying some of this stuff because it improved their lives.
Yeah.
I knew I could be, because I'm just Dan, play gal, like lads think I'm a thug from Swords who's knocking lads around on the football pitch. I'm just a normal fella.
Yeah.
But I'm also into like meditation and journaling and psychedelics and doing podcasts. So some of my mates was like, maybe they'll, through me, get interested in this stuff and it'll help them improve their lives.
There you go.
So all this stuff was in my head. So I approached Jesse. I was like, what do you think? He's like, I love the idea. We started the business. As I said, the start bit is easy. You're having loads of fun with names and colours and all that kind of crack. And then the real work starts. How are we going to make money off this?
Yeah.
So people don't just give you money for being artistic. They don't. So over the course of the next few months, I put a lot of graft into building that business. Jesse had some other stuff going on, so we agreed to part ways. I took over control of the business very early days before anything actually really happened.
Yeah.
And then COVID came.
No way.
At the start of 2020.
I sounded surprised there. COVID came. But go on, sorry.
No way. COVID came. So everything was locked down. The clinic closed. So I spent a lot more time working on Prymal and eventually transitioned over full time to the bit. I knew it was always in me. I always wanted to run my own business. And at the start it was a passion project. Then I was like, okay, the clinic's closed. I'll work on this for a bit. And then I was like, we're 6 months in and the country isn't open and I've no clients and the clinic still isn't open. I was like, what's going on here? Like I've young kids as well. So I was like, it's a bit scary here now. I don't have any major employment, but I knew what I was doing with Prymal. I was like, I had the vision.
I was just going to say, sometimes you're just seeing something that no one else can see that's there, but only you're the only person that's just, and you're pursuing that. I often refer to it as, just because the situation I'm in myself, is like, you're in the middle of the ocean and you're swimming, and in your head you know where this island is, but you need to keep on swimming in that direction before you see it.
Yeah.
And
I'm a terrible swimmer.
And the sharks are coming, so you want to keep on swimming as quick as you can and get there before you drown.
The sharks are the best motivation.
Yeah.
The sharks are a good motivation. So
what were the sharks for you?
I had a family. Like I'm not.
There you go.
Yeah, and like I'm
responsibilities.
I'm 34 years of age. Like, so I'm not 24.
Yeah.
With no responsibility, where you can kind of try a load of things. If it doesn't work, it's just you.
Exactly.
Like I have responsibilities as well, and that was in the back of my mind. And nobody knew what was going to happen with lockdowns and like what was going to work. And I had to start in my head. 90% of businesses failed in the first 2 years. I was by myself now because Jesse was gone. I had no real new business coming in. I thought I knew what business was. I absolutely didn't know what business was in that first year.
Was it a slow burner at the beginning with the whole Prymal?
Very slow, because I'm like because
podcasts are so new. Well, for me, like I know they've been around a while, but it's like even in the scene in Ireland, they don't feel like they're around that long.
Podcasting's around over a decade, but what it is now is different. Now as a tool that people can use to develop personal brand, and like the barrier to entry was always low, but now people understand what it is a little bit more. So a lot more people are interested now, and Irish people tend to be behind the curve compared to the likes of America. We're a little bit further behind about things we adopt and stuff like that. Of course. But I ran a bricks and mortar business. Like I needed people to come to me. That was my service, and there was 5k restrictions, so nobody could travel. So like it was difficult. And then
you probably couldn't meet each other back then as well.
Couldn't meet each other. I was in a weird grey area. Media production was allowed travel, so I was in media production. So I had a weird grey, but none of my clients could travel. None of their guests could travel. So that was a difficult time. But I had great support. My fiance is amazing. She supported me. And then, to be honest with you, one of the best things that happened was meeting our good mutual friend, Mr. Brian O'Loughlin.
Oh yeah.
Business for me, mentorship it changed the game.
Yeah, really.
Changed the game.
I remember the first time you told me about this, you lit up, so it's obviously very important.
Massively important. So if you're asking me about business, I can't give business advice.
Had you ever had a mentor before?
Never. I'd had friends. No, sorry, that's not true. To be fair, I have one guy who's very, very good to me. He's a very, very good business owner, but he wasn't my official mentor. He's a friend, and he's helping me. Go on.
Sorry, I was going to cut across you. I was listening to only a podcast. I listen to a lot of podcasts. The podcast the other day, is it Alex Hormozy? Is that his name?
Alex Hormozy.
Yeah, I know you're a big fan of him. Business guy. Big.
Yeah.
What I love about him, and I only trying to figure out a bit more about him, is that he's trying to teach everyone else how to make the kind of shortcuts in life, because he's a massive millionaire now. He's trying to teach other people how to run their business and make like shortcuts to just get there quicker. Then he don't. He's a billionaire. He's heading towards being a billionaire. But he made a great point of, like you talked about mentors there. He would look for people that could help him, and he would pay whatever money it was, because he knew that price that he would pay for them would just accelerate him in another, like it's like a different rocket ship you're getting, and you're going to the next level. It's like shortening, it's all these like bridging these gaps at a quicker pace, you know what I mean?
That's a better way of putting it. There's no shortcuts in business. You have to work hard and really, really commit to the process.
But there's always someone out there that knows more than you.
But yeah, they'll help you avoid a lot of the pitfalls that will waste your time.
And I was going to say the same thing that you done when me and Noel came into your studio. I had no fucking breathe. We actually tried this before. I bought these mics originally, and we done a podcast in my conservatory inside on the tennis table with the Canon G7X, wherever it is over there. And we attempted it. It was awful. It was god awful. It was terrible. But it was an experience, you know what I mean? We were trying it. And then obviously, then we found out you were in SOARs. Like, what are the chances? You know what I mean?
How did you find me?
I think Noel found you. I don't know how he found you. Probably through Instagram.
Yeah, he reached out to me on Instagram.
Yeah, probably through Instagram. And then that's what I'm saying is like, go, whatever it is in life, you have to go to the source of who knows best, because like I said, there's so much in this world, you have to block out so much. You're blind to it all. Yeah. So go to that person, and then it's like, whoosh, this world exists. Yeah.
There's a million distractions, and I was my biggest distraction. I was my own biggest distraction, because you think you know best, you think you know what you're doing, and to be honest with you, I hadn't a clue about business. Really hadn't a clue. And Brian is a little bit older than me and had been in business a good bit longer than me. Yeah. And had a lot of experience.
Did you have to mention he's older than you there?
I had to. Very important point. Brian is a little bit older than me. But I actually only mentioned that because he's
further ahead.
A bit further ahead. Yeah. He's not so far ahead that the advice he was giving me was irrelevant now. Yeah. Because there's people maybe who are in business 30, 40 years who will have some of the really solid business principles. But for something like what I was doing, which was totally new and bizarre and kind of abstract, and I didn't even really know what it was myself at the start, Brian is in a similar space, because most people nowadays who are creating these new types of businesses, they're kind of individual led, personal brand. They're all about kind of concepts and communities, as opposed to I ship fucking frozen foods around the world, or I make shoes. Like his like Tell us, for example, he's doing now is a mentorship community for lifestyle, and it's not just movement anymore.
Isn't that what people want, isn't it?
People want
through that brand, they want a sense of community.
And that's different, and he understood that from having gone through it for the last 5 or 6 years, and he was only a year or two older than me, so he knew where I was in my life. He's got a young family as well, so it was relevant. And when he came into me as a client originally, and within we were meant to have like my like our consultation, I think it's meant to be half an hour, and 4 hours later we're still there chatting. But he told me he did mentorship, and at the start I was like, I don't need fucking mentorship. I remember the conversation. I was like, I'll let you know. And in my head I was like, this guy just wants fucking money out of me. And then I went and he could see the resistance in me. He's like, just think about it, right? And
isn't it crazy when you're and you're pretty in this situation now where you come across someone, you're trying to convince them of what you have will benefit them in so many other ways, and they're like, fuck off, what are you talking about?
And especially when you're young.
Exactly, and then it's like they give you something and it just changes everything. Like that mentorship.
For me, it's everything. If I was to give anybody, I can't give business advice because I'm not experienced enough, but if I was to give you any advice, find somebody who knows what they're doing, who can help you. Do not listen to me telling you about something that I haven't even, because like everyone will want to give you advice, and friends and family mean so well. And like, I'm blessed. I couldn't have done this without my friends and family.
They're not in the same loop as.
It's not the same thing. No, they'll want to give you advice, but they've no perspective on the advice they're giving you, or what you're trying to do, or how it can be best achieved.
Exactly.
Like, who'd you go to ask to make money? Someone who's made loads of money. You don't ask your mates.
No.
So it's not. It's important to understand that, and these are some of the lessons I had to learn the hard way. But as soon as I started working with Brian, it immediately, not because he is obviously very, very experienced and qualified, and he's got loads of wisdom, but it wasn't because he was a genius. Immediately I realised the potential that I could achieve if I let go of all my own fucking biases and shit, and Dan knows best kind of fuckery.
Let the ego down a small
bit.
The ego,
I had to let the ego go. He crushed me. He crushed me.
And for the better, look at you now, Dan. We were just talking beforehand.
Yeah.
Like, you're hopefully in the next world going to open up another studio and everything else that goes with it and have it all kitted out. You know what I mean?
Big plans, yeah.
Yeah, big plans. But this is what happens when you kind of seek and someone advise you in the right way.
Yeah.
Definitely so.
Yeah. But just to answer your question finally, in one nutshell, starting a business is easy. Running and maintaining a business is very difficult, but the best thing I ever did was mentorship by far. By far, yeah, 100%.
No taken.
Take that note, yeah.
I have another question about podcasts, and because I know you've listened to many podcasts over the years and everything else that goes with it.
I actually don't listen to as many podcasts as people think.
Really? Not anymore?
Well, I'm listening to so many podcasts because I produce so many podcasts, so I'm listening to them in real time.
Who do you listen to nowadays?
Rogan, Some Hormozy, Chris Williamson.
Yeah.
Every now and again.
Who's your favourite podcaster?
Rogan. It's clear. People roll their eyes when I hear that, but like, he's the OG. I love his style.
Yeah.
Him and his guests have helped me change my life over the last 10 years.
I was going to say,
like, changed my life.
He's one of the, for young men or for men of any age, he is one of the best teachers there is, hands down. I think he's changed completely. That's how I got into podcasts, was because of him. And the amount of guests he had on, and you'd hear little snippets of whatever, maybe. Actually, you mentioned him already when he had Naval Ravikant on. Like I was saying, I only recently listened to it because I was going to ask, I was leading up to the question, is what is the kind of one main lesson that you've taken from listening to all the podcasts you listen to?
Yeah.
But I remember listening to that one, and I was kind of getting into meditation bit by bit. And I only re-listened to it because when you re-listen to it, you start hearing things that you didn't hear before. You're hearing them in a different way. And only recently, because I can't talk highly enough about meditation, what it's done for me. I don't think I would have created self-awareness to even be in this position now if I didn't meditate. But I remember listening to that only recently, and Naval Ravikant said something that's so true, and it really hit home what meditation is what we're trying to do. It's not, we don't want peace of mind, we want peace from mind. So you want to get past your mind, because what your mind constantly does, and you talked about a great example you gave, it someone in the car, they emotionally react, and then their phone rings, and then they have to send all these emails. What you're doing there, your analytical mind is just constantly thinking, and it just keeps on getting wound up, and you just never get that space from, like, your mind can be used as a tool, and it can also be like, you can be a slave to it if you've no control over it. If you've no control over your mind, it'll just run riot. It's like a horse in a field, and there's nothing to cage it in, you know what I mean? You have to have somewhat control over it. But if it wasn't for Rogan, because Naval is not on any other podcast, I can't really find him anywhere.
Keeps a really low profile.
Keeps a really low profile. It just shows the kind of credibility Joe Rogan has to get someone of his stature on, and just like you talk facilitator. That's what he's doing. He's facilitating great conversations, and I don't think there's anything more rewarding in terms of trying to develop yourself and even educate yourself. But listen to podcasts. They're just amazing. But trying to get back to the point there, I was rambling on this.
No, not at all.
Rogan's a great example.
But why I think why I love him so much is your reaction twice now. I've seen you do it twice in this conversation. When I mentioned that first podcast with Naval, and when you were talking about it there, you lit up because it meant something to you.
Yeah.
It's helped you learn something about yourself. And I've had hundreds of incidences where someone brings up a name like Naval, and I'm like, did you hear him on Rogan? And the person goes, oh my God, it was the most amazing thing ever. And there's like all this big buzz.
Yeah.
The fact that someone having a conversation with someone else can mean that to so many people so many times. I can think of so many different episodes. Like that Naval episode obviously stands out to me.
Yeah.
I remember exactly where I was when I heard it, because Jill was going. It was a Sunday. I was sitting down to have a bit of lunch. My daughter was in bed asleep having her nap, and Jill was like, I'll be back in a while. I'm going out to the shop or whatever like that. And I was like, I'm just going to listen to this for 10 minutes and I'm going to go do something else. And she walked back in 2 hours and 40 minutes or 20 minutes later, however long it is, and I hadn't moved. I was like, are you all right? I was like, this is amazing. It's like, what? It's like everything this man says speaks to me.
And did you read his book before that?
I didn't even know who he was. Never heard of him before.
Yeah.
And I just clicked on, I saw his picture and I was like, your man looks interesting.
He's so cool.
Yeah.
I actually think he's so cool as well.
But that reaction that people have, I know what that feels like, because it's like conversations like that have had massive impact on how I live my life, or try to live my life. So to see it in you and to see it in so many other people, but that's the power of what this stuff is.
That's what it is. Yeah, it really is. It lights you up inside.
It does. Yeah.
Like the way I'm reacting to that is like when I was younger, when like there's a football goal scored, you know what I mean? You just can't believe it. Exactly, it's that awe moment. Yeah. But is there any lesson in particular that kind of stands out to you over the multitude of podcasts that you've listened to?
There is, and it's actually a lesson from Rogan, because he says it a lot, but a lot of his guests embody it, and really good podcasters embody this as well. And it's this concept of you are not your opinions. And for me, Mo Goddard talked about this as well on Diary of a CEO, but Rogan talks about this all the time, and a lot of, as I said, the guests that he have on, they really do embody what this means. Most people will struggle with this. I struggled with this for a long time and still do. If somebody says something that challenges any belief that I hold, I take it personally, but that affects me in a negative way, and it makes me live my life in a way that I'm constantly defending and reacting to things. And when I heard him say that once before, I had to sit with it for like an hour. I just had to sit and think about what he said, because I knew it challenged me, and I knew I didn't want to listen to what he was saying. Case in point, I was like, what the fuck does he mean there? But if you can separate yourself from the things that you think and believe, because the things you think and believe are in some way programmed into you, either positively or negatively, but they're some way a result of things that have happened that you've experienced. You're not those things.
No.
You are you, and these are things that you believe. So if you, as James Hempton, say something to me that I disagree with, even on a fundamental basis,
it triggers something inside you.
It definitely triggers me. So what I try and do, and I don't succeed most of the time, but what I try and do is I give it a second for that to process, and then I separate myself emotionally from that thing, and then I can have a much better conversation.
You said it there. I was going to say, if you don't emotionally react,
yeah,
that's what it is. That separation is very key, and I think that's one thing that I've learned through meditation as well. Is like give it a second. You don't need to. You know, it's almost an immaturity thing where you say something to me and I go, oh, why? And I get all aggressive and angry and like whatever comes with it. It's like, just keep a cool head about it. You know what I mean?
And it's hard because there's nuance to it as well. Like, for example, what I mean by nuance is if two blokes have a conversation, me and you, there's an ego attached to it as well. Yeah. So it's not just the fact that you disagree with what I said. It's also, I have to get one up on you because you're a bloke and I'm a bloke.
Do you ever, have you ever felt that since, or have you ever?
All the time. I feel it all the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, all the time. I'm not like amazing at doing this, but it's the biggest lesson that I try and practice over and over and over and over and over.
Do you feel you have more control over it now?
I feel a lot more control over it. Yeah, a lot.
What's helped you? Is it just being aware of...
Just being awareness.
Just being aware.
Awareness. And it was him saying that, me hearing him say that sentence, you are not your opinions, gave me a bit of awareness. A bit.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to practice more awareness because I still get pissed off when someone cuts me off in traffic.
I think there's a phrase that's like strong opinions held loosely.
Strong opinions loosely held, yeah.
Yeah, and that's it. Yeah, it's just... There's no need to be attached to whatever it is you believe, you know what I mean? It's just...
You live a much happier life, and this is what Mo Goddard was talking about. And he has techniques for it, like always give yourself 3 seconds or something like that when someone says something, and that 3 seconds is to allow you process what they've said, remove the emotion from it, and decide how you're going to respond, as opposed to just respond.
Yeah.
Like you get to decide how you respond to this, 100%. And how I respond to you, because like I can affect this whole conversation by just listening to what you say and then responding a different way.
Yeah.
Because then you're going to respond differently to my response, and it's going to just take us down a different trajectory. And like, if you want to get really hippie on this is how you can change the world, like, because we're all just reacting to each other in fucking bad ways.
Yeah.
If everybody just took a couple of seconds, and I didn't react to that guy in the car and call him a wanker, he's not going to give me the finger back and go home and shout at his missus. Because
that's the thing, if you react like that, you could turn someone's day the complete opposite way. Just it's having that awareness. Whatever you do, every interaction you have, you could actually better someone else's life.
Yeah,
whatever it may be. Just something it has to be so simple. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be very complex. But I actually that's a great lesson learned is give yourself, and it's almost very kind of stoic like as well. They talk about like you don't control the situation, you just control how you react to it. You know what I mean? And and that's what it is. Yeah. You're just controlling your reaction to whatever it is.
All these phrases are great. The more awareness you develop, the more these phrases like the Stoics and all that kind of stuff start to really make sense to you.
I love. I think I've only just recently came across in the last one, but I think it's the philosophy. I just love everything about it. The way to live your life, and I'm trying to do a deep dive into it. I do. I got it there recently. Discipline is Destiny.
Discipline is Destiny.
So I've only started reading it at the moment, but it's just all the virtues and everything else that goes with it. It's just 2,000 years ago they knew this, even before Christianity was around. You know what I mean? They knew this before, and it's like how they conducted themselves. I love it because
it's amazing.
Everything in life is just how you conduct yourself. How display the self mastery, the self control, the self discipline that you have. And I don't know. It's
hard though.
It is. It's difficult.
It's hard going.
It's something you train to do, and then you go and just show the world how it is.
Yeah.
Tell me, we're talking about touching on a few different topics here. Self development, you have mentioned before. What does self-development mean to you in the sense, or even where did it begin for you, or even that term, because it's a very common term nowadays, but do you remember originally when you first heard it, or?
Probably on podcasts, I would say.
Podcasts, I mean, podcast, self-development, I suppose, listen to podcasts, that's a great way to develop yourself.
Yeah. It's a funny relationship I have with self-development because I love it.
Yeah.
Really love it. And I really am driven to be a better person, a better version of myself. And this is a funny thing. People get a bit squirrely around this.
I was going to say your higher self. That's what I talk about.
My higher self, yeah. I know I have potential to be a much better person. And people are like, oh, you have to give yourself a break and have some empathy. I'm not saying I'm a shit person here. Yeah. I can be better though. Yeah. And this is what like Peterson talks about this. To a certain degree, people like Tate talk about this, even though they talk about it in a very controversial way. Yeah. Holiday talks about this. All these people are talking about the same concept.
This higher self.
Higher self. There's potential to be better, to live better.
And what I like, you said it well there, you've got the higher self, but you've also got this lower self.
Yeah, definitely.
So you can tap into either one. It's always that it's almost like you're always chasing the best version of who you are,
100%.
who you could be. You know what I mean? And that's in that pursuit and in that journey is that you just keep on striving to just keep on just getting better and better as you go along.
I like to think about it this way. I like the idea of like the obstacle is the way. Hard things make you a better person.
Yeah.
If I think about it this way, most of the things that are like we talk about nowadays, like social media and TV and bad food and all that kind of stuff, they're not evil, but they make me a worse person because I feel bad if I eat shit food and I don't train. I feel bad if I spend an hour scrolling Instagram. I just feel bad because it's not good for your brain. And if I feel bad, then my interaction with you is less.
Exactly.
So I'm a less pleasant version of me that you get to interact with.
You said it well there. Like when you engage in bad activities or activities that may affect you in a certain way and make you not feel as good, it's like where are you spending your energy? It's like you've got this bank of energy and you just get to cash in on all these things.
And that's draining it.
Yeah, and it's like you can multiply your cash by exercising, by doing cold water.
Exactly.
By, I don't know, reading a book, by doing a podcast.
Yeah.
But if you cash in where you're eating, like you said, all this junk food and it's taking more of your cash out of you and more energy away from you, you're just left with nothing and no one wants to be around. No, I'm not saying like in a negative sense, but if your energy isn't good, people don't normally gravitate towards you.
100%.
I think that's
well. Like I look at this right. I'm a dad. I'm a business owner. I'm a friend. I'm a partner.
Podcaster.
I'm a podcaster. And I'm better at all those things when I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
So for me, personal development, if I can be a better version of me, thank you. No if I can be a better version of me, all of those things are going to improve. My relationships and the people around me are going to feel better for having me around. And if they work on all those things, I'm going to feel better for having them around and vice versa. So for me, personal development isn't about constantly just being better at everything all the time. It's about being the version of myself I know is going to have a better life at all those things that I mentioned. Yeah. But it's really, really hard. And there's this concept, I know Chris Williamson talks about it a lot, called mental masturbation as well. The idea of I've read the book, therefore that's the work done.
No,
and
it's something I've realised recently as well. I'm trying to I used to fly through books, and it's only Ryan Holiday put up a reel the other day about talking about how he dissects books, taking notes, and really.
Yeah. But even that, right? So my let me really kind of drill down to what my take on personal development is. Most of these books and people, like you mentioned Hermosa, we've talked about all these people today, like Naval and Joe and Peterson and all these people. Most of them are saying exactly the same thing. In my opinion, there is a few fundamental things that you can do that will allow you to improve in most of the areas of your life, such as develop consistency, don't lie. Yeah. Have a set of principles for yourself, like a set of personal standards, a personal philosophy, if you want to call it that. And if you live by those rules that you've set for yourself, most other things will take care of themselves. You'll be better at most of the things that you do. Because you'll work hard, you'll be consistent, you'll always show up, you'll be there for people, you'll have a good attitude, you won't be lying. That's a pretty good place to be. Most of these books, when you finish, you realize it's just the same thing. You can read 1,000 of these books and it's the same thing they're saying over and over and over again. It's this set of principles. So what I'm trying to do now at the moment is really boil down the really important ones. And like there's times at the moment like I'm really busy. Things are really growing in the job. I'm trying to figure it out and trying to systemize it and scale it. So it's very easy for everything to go to shit. So I'm like, right, what are the fundamental things? And Brian helps me with this too, and I know I help him with it as well. Every single day, if I do these fundamental things, I try and set aside some time for my family. I try and set aside some time to eat some good food and to train a little bit and then give the best service to my clients. And then every single person I come across, I try and have a good interaction with them. That's it.
I like what you said there, Dan. You talked about time, and I only heard it recently when you were speaking with Brian on your own podcast, is like actually having time for these things, like having a calendar and looking at the calendar and going, I am having time for whatever personal development work, listening to podcasts, going to the gym, being with my kids, whatever it may be, is just actually see it there though. It's really key, because for me, I've only came across the Google Calendar in the last year, and
it's been your life, man.
Life changing, because it gives me this kind of just perspective. And I'm not saying I'm great with it at all. I'm trying to get better with it, but it gives me a perspective on my week and where I'm spending my time, because your time's everything. You know what I mean? So it's just how you're cashing in on it is so key.
And putting those things, and again, I learned this from Brian, putting those things in that are important to you first, and not the work stuff first, is the only way to get it done, to guarantee you get it done. And like why I say it's about those fundamental things for me, because there's a million things I could do. Get up in the morning, do ice bath, do 17 minutes of cardio, eat a steak, get some red light exposure, all this stuff, and that's all great, and it's all the 1% of stuff. It's all the biohack stuff that people are like, this is going to change my life. It's not. That's the extra stuff. It's the fundamentals that work. And like I literally spoke to Brian about this before I came over here. We were chatting on the phone, and I was like, I'm really overwhelmed at just today, because it was so busy the last 3 days, and I'm going to do this podcast with James now, so I won't get work done tonight. So get up early in the morning. I was just thinking of all this stuff, and I was like, do you know exactly what I need? To sit down over the weekend with a pen and paper and plan out the next week, and just put in all the good stuff first. That's going to reset me. So it's like little fundamental principles like that.
Does it just come up every so often where you're just kind of overloaded with just work?
Every so often, and I feel it coming, and I know why it's coming. It's because I've let go of some of those fundamental principles. And like, for example, the last week,
just to look after yourself.
Exactly. Or even like the last week, I was getting home that little bit late where my son was in bed when I got home. I was like, that is not acceptable for me. Like, because he's only one. He's never going to be one again. I want to see him when I get home, because he runs up and he's daddy. And gives me a call. He's not going to do that forever. And I'll miss that. So I was like, that for the sake of a half an hour in work, what are you doing, man? But I needed that kick in the ass to get the awareness. So I tried to get home a little bit earlier today, because I knew I was coming here. And I got home and he was there, and he's daddy. And I was like, lovely. Right, perfect. This is what it's for. So you can reset it really easily. But the danger is, without the awareness, it'll never happen. It's you spiral. And you develop bad habits. And you miss all these moments. But you develop bad eating, and then it's harder to train, and then you don't train, and it's hard, and then you're just in bad form, and then maybe your relationship breaks down, and maybe you don't like your job anymore, and then maybe you're a little bit so I can see that spiral happen. And I'm only one step away from that spiral all the time. So to give you a really long-winded answer to personal development, like for me, it's more about the fundamentals than all the books and all the stuff, because I used to consume so much personal development content. Now I pick a few people, and I like hearing the same messages over and over again. I don't want a million new messages, because shiny object syndrome was big with me, especially with the business stuff. I was like, well, this didn't work, so this will work. This didn't work, this will work. And then, like, for someone like Brian would say, the only reason this didn't work is because he did it for 6 weeks. Try it for 6 months
and see what happens.
And I was like, oh yeah, and then it worked. So principles, consistency, pick the simple things and just do them well and do them often. That's it for me. And then when you get overwhelmed, just go back to the things that are simple, and like you'll see it straight away. Why do I feel shit? Oh, because I'm not doing all these things that I usually do to make me feel good.
Become your own therapist, like you said, once again.
1000%. Come and do a podcast with James Hempton. I feel great. I'm enjoying this. This is good fun.
I'm loving this too. And tell me, how have you created more awareness in your own life? Has there been any kind of factor or influence that you've actually helped you to cultivate more awareness in your own life, or is it just having this like broader perspective and overview of your week, of your calendars, or has there been maybe one thing you've done, or is there anything in particular that's created more awareness for you?
In terms of strategies and tools and techniques, I like journaling is one I keep going back to try. And every now and again helps me with a little bit of perspective.
Have you gone to the habit of it?
I have never gotten into the habit of it. I've done it consistently here and there.
It's a very weird thing to do, isn't it? Write your thoughts down the page.
It's a very frustrating thing to do.
It can be.
Because it's rare enough that you'd be like, oh, okay, I feel way better now for doing that. But again, I've never done it long enough to get a result. You know, you do it and you're like, why don't I fucking feel better? It's like that reel going around on Instagram at the moment. It's like, you better fix my whole life, you little fuck, or whatever it is. It doesn't. But realistically, I've put people in my life, a couple of people in my life who just give me a reality check from time to time. That helps with awareness. I try and give myself a little bit of space to think about how I feel about things, or how things are going, or what's actually important. And it's random. I don't have a really great structure for this, so I need to get better at this. But for example, I was driving to Tala, was it yesterday, to go do a job, and I was like, I won't put a podcast on. It's a 20-minute drive. I'll drive in silence. 10 minutes in, it was like having a fucking psychedelic journey. I was like, oh my brain was like, what the fuck? There was no input here.
It's crazy.
I was starting to organize thoughts and stuff, and I was like getting real creative. I was like, I need to write this down.
Do you know what is mad? Yeah, you just give yourself space.
Literally all you need to do.
That's all it is space. Look, distraction again.
Yeah.
It's just you stick on a podcast distracted because you're listening now.
100%.
I had the same thing. I only drove down the road today and I hopped into the car and I for whatever reason, I just didn't put something on.
Yeah.
And I started talking to myself. Whatever was on my mind, I spoke it out loud. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Creative ideas, whatever it may be, is just actually speak to yourself.
Yeah.
People think you're crazy now, of course. Yeah, but
you're crazy. That's why you got to get it out.
Who cares? You know, you're defiling all what's going on in there. You're just kind of getting it out. Just figuring things. You start figuring things out.
That's exactly like you're closing those loops. Like we talked about earlier on.
Yeah, there closing. I don't know. There's just such a need for it.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's that need, that word reminded me there. After that 75 hard challenge thing, was it 70? No, it was a 60, Prymal 60. We put in 5 minutes of meditation every day.
Yeah.
And
how did you get on with that?
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
To the point where and then like typically Prymal 60 stopped. Everything stopped. We did everything religiously for 60 days and then nothing for the following 2 weeks. Just the way it goes. Now I was coming into championship season and stuff as well, so there's stuff going on.
Priorities.
I got busy. They're all excuses. I could have kept doing it.
Because the thing is, if it had been going while championship was going, you would have done it.
Yeah, would have done it.
What is this, Dan? Because I only done something similar.
Nature.
When I got back from EP, I was like, oh fuck, I need a bit of a reset here. So I done this challenge called Monk Mode.
Oh yeah.
Just a challenge. Meditation, exercise every day.
I like it. Yeah.
And done it for 21 days, kept it consistent. And I do meditate, but I don't do it every single day. But from doing that challenge, I made sure I done it every day because I could not let myself down and go, you missed a day.
Yeah.
Because then it's over.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
You miss a day, it's finished. And then after, like, I still be consistent with exercise and everything else and whatever else was with that challenge. But since the challenge ended, I haven't replaced it with anything just yet. But it's like, I feel, not that I'm lacking that discipline, but I just feel I know in myself I could be more disciplined. And by having a challenge, it just sets you straight almost.
It proves to you that you can do it.
Yeah, but
like the 75 hard thing was like...
It's like you have structure with your... Not that I don't have the structure, but you have more... I get up in the morning, this is happening, I'm doing this today.
Yeah.
It gives you great kind of just get up and go for the day.
Well, that's Jocko's thing. Discipline is freedom.
Yeah.
And it's really hard because you have to... We all know it's right. But it's fucking so hard to accept that this is how you're going to live your life. But
he's an extremist in this sense.
And he is a very extreme. You don't have to be as extreme as him.
4:30 in the morning working out.
Yeah.
I love it.
But if you do have that discipline, like that's what I was going to say, the 75 hard thing proved to me that we could work out twice a day and do all the other bits and bobs just by having discipline. I didn't want to do that any day.
Yeah,
there was no day I was like, today I want to do this.
Yeah.
I was like, I said I'd fucking do it, and Brian's going to be calling me in about an hour to check if I've done my first workout.
It's great having that accountability.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
But that discipline gives you the freedom then because it gives you the things you know are going to fill your cup up, which allow you the freedom to live your life the way you want to live it, without having to rely on motivation. And if you have to rely on motivation, like there's no way you're not going to ever going to want to do the things that are difficult.
No, I heard this recently, but motivation only comes after you do an event. So
Yeah.
say we do a podcast now. I actually was motivated for this podcast. Bad example, but if you weren't motivated, the motivation only comes after you sometimes do something. You know what I mean? You can watch all the videos till the world ends, but if, like you said, motivation, I think
motivation is a myth. Is this concept?
It's fleeting. You know what I mean? It comes and goes. You're gonna be motivated one day. You have to be. I think you talk about being true to yourself. Being disciplined is like a form of being true to you. You know what I mean? You're not going to let yourself down. Whatever maybe in terms of doing that 75 hard and even the Prymal 60 as well. It's like you made sure that you done it for the 60 days and it was happening. And there's just, I think you said there's freedom there, and it's so true. I think if you don't have discipline in your life, things are too chaotic where I think you could lose yourself completely.
Well, that's why people end up lost. There's a whole planet full of lost people at the moment. And like, I just want to clarify, if anybody's listening to this and rolling their eyes, that discipline doesn't mean you have to get up and work out every morning. This whole concept of lifestyle design means you get to decide the things that you think are going to make your life better, and then you use discipline to get it done. So it can be whatever the fuck you want. Like, do whatever you want, but discipline applies to, if you can apply discipline to that strategy that you have, you'll achieve the goal. So it doesn't have to be, I'm going to have to get up and work out every single day and eat this kind of food. It's not all about strength and fitness and health and all that kind of crap. For anything, if you have discipline, it lets you be consistent, and it gives you the freedom and the drive,
you said it there,
the momentum.
You have to be consistent though. Consistency is a massive factor in being disciplined, whatever you do.
100%, yeah. It's almost the same. They go hand in hand.
They do.
If you're being consistent, you're being disciplined because you're always getting it done. But yeah, some people they're talking about all this, fucking get up and do 100 deadlifts every day. Not at all. Like, be disciplined in the time you set for your family.
Yeah.
Be disciplined in how you nurture your relationship with your partner. Like sometimes you don't want to sit down and like, how was your day?
Yeah.
And I'm a demon for this as well. And you don't want to like open up and talk to the person and communicate.
Yeah.
But if you know, like sit down and plan this out. And if I don't nurture this relationship, we're not going to get on in 10 years. This won't grow. We won't love each other anymore. So be disciplined. And even when you don't feel like it, still do it.
Yeah.
There's loads of ways of applying discipline. It's not about working out. Because most people hear that and they're like, oh, fucking work. I'm not going working out. It's whatever you think is valuable in your life. If you value it, plan it, and then stay disciplined and be consistent and get it done.
And I'll come to you.
It sounds like I do this all the time. I don't, but this is how I think about it.
You do practice it.
I practice it, and I fall off and I come back.
Exactly, yeah. And that does happen. But like I was saying, it's great having them structures in place that make you more disciplined as well.
Yes.
Definitely. Right. One thing I know you do, Dan, is read. Do you read many non-fiction books?
To refer back to one of the previous points in personal development, not as many as I used to.
Yeah.
I try and I read books now based on strong referral. If someone says you really have to read this book, like one of the latest ones I read was 12 Rules for Life. You read all the kind of like the James Clears and the habit stack and all that kind of stuff. All the principles are the same. They're the same as everything we've just talked about for the last 30 minutes there.
100%.
Discipline, consistency, focus, all that kind of stuff.
There's a non-fiction book on the table over there.
Is that what you're asking the question?
I said we mention it because it's I don't read many non-fiction books, but this one absolutely blew me away when I did read it. It's
well, this is fiction.
Fiction. Sorry, not non-fiction. This is fiction.
This is fiction. Yeah.
I want to get the terminology right.
Yes.
George Orwell's 1984. I was actually looking over your own reel that
we've just lost half the audience.
Yeah, we have indeed. This book is absolutely incredible. Yeah, and it blew me away. But what was your own kind of take when you were reading it? If people, could we give them some sort of an insight into it? Is how did it make you feel when you read it?
It's an interesting question.
Yeah.
It made me feel lots of things when I read it. Because I read it during COVID.
Yeah. Oh, you read it during COVID?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was like reading the fucking newspaper.
Yeah, yeah.
It was like a real time view. I won't put my tinfoil hat on too strongly here now, but for me it was an interesting narrative on human nature
and how easy we can be controlled.
Yeah, there's loads of that in it, right? We can go down the rabbit hole and all that kind of control and stuff like that. But I've always been of the opinion that the way things are at the moment, systems, call them systems, governments, companies, whatever, teams, they're all systems in which people have to interact with each other to achieve some sort of goal. Sometimes the goal is the common goal. Many times it's not the common goal. Many times it's for the people at the very, very top, and most of the people below do most of the heavy lifting. Yeah. But why I found this so interesting is because it's a really, really accurate representation of a human system. So it describes this kind of dystopian world where
it's totalitarian.
Yeah, it's totalitarian, and people live in this sense of one, complete and utter denial, but they're completely controlled by a series of lies, and the lies are told in a way that make it seem like it's done for your own good.
Yeah, yeah.
In my experience, most systems exist to keep the systems alive. So the system doesn't want to die. If that's a government, if it's a company,
it's like a species as well.
It's an animal. It doesn't want to die. But this is where I draw a line, and I like to kind of go a little bit nuanced on it. Most people think, like for example, Pharma is evil. I was like, okay, Pharma is an industry. Yeah. And there's an incentive model in any industry, but there's also individuals in that. So I use Mary, right? Mary's my example that I use. Imagine Mary works in a pharmaceutical company, and this pharmaceutical company could potentially make a cure for a very, very bad disease or an illness or cancer or something like that. Yeah. Everybody says, well, surely they don't have the answer because like they're not evil, and like people working in the company would surely tell everybody. But Mary works in the company, and she's not evil. She's just a normal person like me and you. Yeah. Mary pays her mortgage. Mary has a family. Mary has all of her own. That's the only reason she works that job, is because she's got her own life. So she's got an individual incentive to work that job.
Of course.
her incentive isn't to create a company to take over the world and that she's evil. No, not at all. Mary's a good person. So most people who work in these companies or in these systems are very good people. But the system doesn't give a shit. So the system has a bottom line. For example, a pharma company's bottom line is its shareholders.
Yeah.
We've got to make more money this quarter than we did last quarter to make our shareholders. They're money-making machines. So they don't care. That's not why Mary's in it. And most of the companies made up of Mary. So when people say pharma is evil, most of the people in pharmaceuticals are very good people.
Exactly.
But the incentive model is off because that company only exists to make money. Mary is there to make money.
Yeah.
So nobody in there really is there for us to make better medications for us. Now, it drives innovation and it's amazing what some of these companies can do.
Yeah.
But if somebody at the top of that company decides we want to make more money and they decide to do it in a way that's maybe not the best way of doing things, Mary doesn't get a say. Nobody else gets a say. Mary says something, she loses her job. She's not losing her job because she's got 3 kids and she's got a sick mother and she's got a mortgage to pay. So she's not going to speak up or change. And she probably doesn't think there's anything wrong with what they're doing because they just come up with the latest drug for ABC. But if somebody at the very top who makes the decisions decides to shift the goalpost a little bit and we suffer as a result, that for me, 1984 was a great hyper example of what that potentially looks like. Yeah. And if anybody speaks out or questions that system, they're a freak or a weirdo or a conspiracy theorist or a this or a that. So when I was reading that book, there's so many parallels to what was happening during COVID. Like whatever you think about COVID or whatever, there was loads of parallels to draw about human behavior and about how systems operate.
And double speak and everything. Like
double speak, how
saying one thing meaning the opposite.
Saying one thing meaning something else.
Or changing the words.
Moving the goalposts.
Changing the words.
Changing the words, changing definitions. So, it's like people have loads of opinions on
I can't believe this was written in, what was it, 1940?
1940. 39 or 40, was it?
Was that what it was?
It says it on the back here, I think. I don't know, I can't read fast enough to find it.
1942 or something. It's crazy.
Something like that, yeah.
He mentioned something in it that really kind of hit on me when I think about modern day as well. Is like
1949.
1949. Yeah. Telescreens. Like he couldn't be seen in his apartment with the telescreen.
Yeah.
Now we walk around with this phone that just stares at the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know who's looking at you behind that screen. It's just crazy and different elements of it as well.
There's a couple of ways people think about this kind of stuff. Like there's big bad evil overlords there. I don't know. Maybe there is. Maybe there isn't. I don't know. What I do understand is human nature and incentive models. Yeah. And most of the decisions that are made nowadays are made based on financial incentive. It doesn't make the people evil.
Yeah.
It doesn't even make the people making the decisions evil.
Yeah.
But there's incentives.
It's just the system is evil.
It's too nuanced. The system isn't evil. The system is the system. The system wants to stay alive. It's not evil.
Yeah.
Maybe there's evil people up there pulling strings. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that question. That's not necessarily what I believe. Yeah. But I understand people and I understand incentive models. And there's so much nuance that if anybody tries to tell me that this company A does this for this reason or this government's doing this for that reason, I'm like, number one, there's no way you can know that because nobody can know that because there's a million different factors in that decision. And nobody can know all the factors.
Of course.
So anybody who tells me that I'm wrong, I'm like, I'm not saying I'm right, but I'm not saying that you're right either because nobody fucking knows the answer.
Who knows?
Yeah, but it's
interesting read though.
Really great story. Even if you're not a conspiracy theorist like me and James here, great story, really really interesting story, but a very interesting commentary on human nature and Winston's kind of his journey through it is you can pull a lot of relatable elements from it.
Yeah.
And like most people are like me and you, they're curious, they're interested, they're good, they want to do the right thing. But my belief is a lot of the times the right thing and what we believe aren't necessarily aligned properly.
Exactly, definitely so. Tell me, Dan, one last question to wrap it up. It's been a great conversation. Jeez,
we nearly went off the rails there. We've lost all the listeners.
We nearly did. What is the future of podcasting, do you believe?
The future of podcasting?
Yeah, like where is it going? Is it because it's, for me, look, it still seems quite new, but where is the future of podcasting going to go, do you believe?
So I'll answer the question in a slightly different way, because podcasting for me is a tool.
Yeah.
It's a tool. Conversation is the real thing that's happening during a podcast. But the podcast is, we have mics and a computer here, but this conversation is what it's all about. If no one listens, we still had the conversation.
Yeah.
There's a shift happening at the moment that's allowing people create more autonomy. There's tools available like podcast, the internet, computers, phones, technology, code that are allowing people create lives for themselves that wasn't possible even 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And that innovation is accelerating exponentially. It's getting so fast. What's happened in the last 2 years is more innovation that's probably happened in the last 40 years.
Yeah.
And every year that's getting quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker. So
it's frightening.
It's frightening, but it's exciting.
Yeah.
And it gives us an opportunity. Like, my job wouldn't exist without podcasting, but next year there's going to be more jobs. Like, there's now it's social media influencer is a job, YouTuber is a job, gamer is a job, coder is a job,
creative designer, whatever.
Whatever. Yeah. Like, these are all jobs that didn't exist half a decade ago, and there's going to be more of those jobs. I think podcasting is really interesting because it allows, say for example, us to build a community of people who can engage with us on a much, much deeper level.
Yeah.
And that means we can build businesses. So it means we can offer value, provide services and products that
become your livelihood. Yeah,
it can become your livelihood. It's my livelihood at the moment, and I'm not a podcaster as a livelihood, but I support podcasters.
Facilitator.
I'm a facilitator. I'm a business owner, and the business I run is based off this new medium. I advertise and grow my business through social media, so that's given me an opportunity there. Like, my business comes solely through referral and social media. I don't do any marketing really at the moment. So where I see it going is, like, the podcast thing won't change too much.
Do you think it's just going to get bigger and bigger?
I think it's just going to provide more opportunities and platforms for people. I potentially see a point where everybody has a podcast.
I think so. I have often thought this only recently, is like, if you have a thought and if you have thoughts and you've got a voice, you can have a podcast. You just have to take the courage and bravery to just go and do it, and that's all it is.
And, like, people get caught up in this whole idea of, but there's so many podcasts out there. I can give you the stats. There's about, depending on where you look for these statistics, there's about 4 million podcasts out there at the moment. Now, in a world of 7 billion, how many are we now? 7 billion people?
Yeah.
That's not a lot of podcasts, and only about 500,000 to 1 million of those are actually active, which means they've released an episode in the last 3 months. So most people aren't doing this still. Yeah. Most people aren't doing this. Most people aren't creating content on social media, even though everyone has an Instagram profile. Most people are still consuming. They're not creating. So there's massive opportunity out there for people. Most people aren't starting online businesses. A few people are, and we're all consuming their content.
Yeah.
Most people aren't YouTubers, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
So there's huge scope for growth there. And you don't have to have an audience of thousands of people for it to be a podcast. If one person listens, this is a podcast. If they don't, it's just a conversation.
Exactly, yeah.
But to me, that's opportunity. And I don't know what way it's going to go, but if everybody has a podcast, because everybody has a different type of value to offer or value they get from doing it, that's very, very realistic, because the barrier to entry is getting lower and lower and lower and lower and lower.
Yeah.
Like, you can learn how to do this stuff. The equipment's quite cheap. So the conversation's never going away, and we're reintegrating it now by doing, like, long form media is becoming popular again.
Well, thank God it is. I was just gonna say, because the great thing about podcasts, it's almost like a lotus flower. It's just came where, like, this whole age of TikTok and short span attention, and it's like, from all that, whatever it be, mud or whatever it is that's in that lake, and then you just have this beautiful flower that comes up, and it's a podcast. You know what I mean? Where it's longer form. People actually sit down together, take the time to be one another, and it's not like quick fix, quick, like sharp, just seeing multiple things at once and your mind going crazy. It's just giving, like you call it, long form content. Yeah. What I think is needed in this day and age.
Yeah, and like these tools, again, like social media, there's a lot of negative elements to social media, but it's just a tool at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like anything. Alcohol is a tool.
Yeah.
Steroids are a tool. Pharmaceuticals are a tool. This phone is a tool. How you use something and your intent dictates what happens. If you mindlessly consume social media content, you will feel shit. I use it to run my business. Now, sometimes I get caught mindlessly consuming and I feel shit.
Yeah.
So you have to be very, very mindful and aware, but you can use this stuff. Social media is a very, very powerful tool to draw more people to your podcast. And when you use them in combination the right way with the right intent, it's amazing what you can achieve. People have built billion-dollar empires through social media, through LinkedIn, through YouTube, through TikTok, through Instagram.
Yeah.
Depends on how you use it. So your awareness and your intent is really, really important. But there's massive potential. It's the same with podcasts. Like, and this is one of the questions I asked you guys when you came in. What is your goal here? What's success look like? And if someone says to me, I want 20,000 listeners, I want to top the charts, I'm like, okay, we need to recalibrate this metric for success. That's an arbitrary number, and that's an ego thing.
Exactly.
And that's going to mean you're going to get caught up in this rat race of trying to get numbers because they feed your ego. Let's try and build different metrics for what this means to you. Like, are you trying to add value, build community? Do you want to build
something
a business?
A bit more real?
Because most people have that inside them, but they get caught on the number thing. Like with social media, you get caught in the scroll and you get caught in the likes and the follows and all that shit. But the tool is just the tool. Now, they do manipulate the tool to take advantage of our little lizard brains. We have to be aware of that. But when you're aware of it, you've got the power. So awareness is power. So
awareness is power.
It's
a lovely note. I like that. Awareness is power.
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't have awareness, you're just mindlessly consuming this stuff.
100%.
So with podcasting, everybody go start a podcast. If you need help, talk to Prymal.
There we go.
That's the plug.
Dan, listen, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
It's an absolute pleasure,
been
man.
an absolute joy of a conversation.
No, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate the invite.
No problem. All the best, everyone. Good night.
Peace.
Happy days.
Yeah.
That was brilliant. I love that.
Enjoy
that.
that.
Was savage.
Yeah. How long are we going?